I'm now going to hand over to Anna, who's going to describe to you the trajectory of disclosures as our curatorial collaboration, and within that, what Hydrarchy has been.
Thank you, Mia. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm very glad we managed to finally have the symposium scheduled as part of the show. I wanted to say a few words about Hydrarchy. So as Mia said, it is the continuation of a discussion that started really in 2008 with a project called Disclosures. Disclosures is a curatorial platform which has been interested in spaces that can act as containers of resistance and generators of alternative genealogies, discourses, and modes of functioning. Spaces that are in between the center and the margins, and which have given rise to specific historiographies. Disclosure started with a project about open source inspired cultural work, that is cultural work engaging with non-hierarchical and non-commercially driven collaboration tools, with the view to producing alternative knowledge or to shed light on existing knowledge that has been ostracized. It then continued as an inquiry into the economic, social, and ideological connections between the digital commons and the agricultural commons in the context of England, referring to the open field system up until the 16th century. Like the first Disclosures project and its subsequent installments, this project brought together people working from a variety of fields, that is culture, social sciences, education, activism, and in the case I just mentioned, agriculture. This research into the commons then led us to read a book that probably many of you have heard of, called The Many-Headed Hydra, Commoners, Slaves, and the Hidden History of the Revolutionary Atlantic, published in 2000 by Marcus Rediker, or written by Marcus Rediker and Peter Linebaugh. And that book really has been a starting point for the Hydrarchy project. The Many-Headed Hydra is, amongst other things, a history of labor at sea, a history of a highly stratified society, living, working, and traveling under the sea's sovereignty. Sorry. I will. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, going back to the Many-Headed Hydra, in this book, Marcus Rediker and Peter Linebaugh recoined the term hydrarchy, which in Marcus Rediker's term refers to, on the one hand, hydrarchy from above, meaning the state and its sovereignty as projected onto the sea, but it also refers to hydrarchy from below, meaning the self-organization of seafaring people who are agents in the making of history, not only on behalf of the state, but also on behalf of themselves. Marcus Rediker was part of the conference that we organized as part of Hydrarchy, which had its first installment in September 2010 at Gasworks in London. And the conference, I just want to mention a few of the points that were discussed as part of this event, because I think they will relate to also today's conversations. We had the collective camp from Mumbai, who talked about the sea of relations between nation states, tax regimes, labor pools, and ecosystems. We also had the artist Amy Bolkin from San Francisco, who talked about the contradictions between free and open spaces and the relationships between the sea and sky as commons, as stages for state power, economic and military, and as sites of extraction and expropriation. In a way, and I won't talk so much anymore about Marcus Rediker, but this book and his work in collaboration with Peter Linebaugh was a little bit what he and Chambers' work means for the second part of this project. And we will, I mean, you're an important person in this symposium. We're really pleased you're here. And as Mia said, your work has informed a lot of the practitioners involved in this project. I will just hand on to Mia to add a few things about how Hydrarchy then evolved onto the Cairo edition.
To be able to know more about the London version of Hydrarchy, you can go online. The link is in your handout, and you can watch the presentations and read the papers that were given. You can also see documentation of the artwork that was exhibited. We were initially cautious in moving Hydrarchy to Egypt because Egypt is not perceived as a maritime country. And this, in fact, was an important shift as we had to develop for ourselves an understanding rather than to handle a received set of histories. Essentially, we were looking for not only a geographical shift in the ideas, but a critical shift as well. Dominant discourses refer to the sea as either a sensational space with extraordinary phenomena and situations that are not found on land, or an apparently politically blank one, i.e. an empty landscape hosting only a handful of historical battles or the long routes of shipping vessels. Hydrarchy explores the shift of geopolitical discourse and border relations from a land-bound to a seaborne perspective. What we appreciate about the term maritime criticism, which this is where I hesitate a lot because we have the proposer of the term maritime criticism in the room, I'm a little hesitant to describe this, but my feeling is that it doesn't just carve space for the extraordinary stories of the sea, but also refuses to consign them to the conventional discursive space of the exceptional or the marginal. In the sense that maritime criticism proposes a language, potentially, and a mode of thought. This is in the fact that the sea is recognized as a space of permanent and incredibly diverse exceptionality, which in itself requires a language of its own. Not only this, but in realizing this and operating from this perspective, we can potentially escape dominant land-bound logics that affect our ideas of the nation-state, of cultural, ethnic separations, and the subjectivities that those separations privilege. This, for me, is a perspective that opens itself to the embodied and emotional experiences of numerous actors, operating rather invisibly and in spite of these logics. It is thus extremely accessible. People such as people who get called pirates, people who get labeled irregular migrants, those operating in the shady world of offshore finance, all are part of this world. And this, for me, is what, and potentially Anna, what Disclosures, the collaboration has been about, seeking spaces and histories that potentially give us access to another mode of thought, other mindsets, other possibilities, other subjectivities in relation to the broader power paradigms, I guess. So I think we should hand over to our first speaker. I'm very happy to present Professor Ian Chambers, who is presently Professor of Cultural and Postcolonial Studies at the Oriental University in Naples, where he has been Director of the Center for Postcolonial Studies, and presently coordinates the PhD program in Cultural and Postcolonial Studies of the Anglophone world. He's the author of numerous books, including Mediterranean Crossings, The Politics of an Interrupted Modernity, which is a text you will find is perhaps running through the thinking of today. And he's about to publish in Italian Mediterranean Blues, Music's Melancholia and Maritime Criticism. So I'll hand over. I hope you have everything you need. Thank you very much.